I love that. Meanwhile, we'll get to that moment later. Zion won the draft in more ways than one. The #1 overall pick wasn't a surprise for most, but the level of emotion and gratitude, and that was just the overwhelming feeling of the night. Images of families realizing dreams do come true. Here's more from Zion's amazing moment.
I don't know what to say. I didn't think I'd be in this position. My mom sacrificed a lot for me. I wouldn't be here without my mom. She did everything for me. I just want to thank her. She put her dreams aside for mine. She always looked out for the family first before herself. It don't even seem real that I just shook his hand. I dreamed about this since I was 4, and for it to actually happen, I just thank God for it.
Tears streaming down Zion's face. Unbelievable. Then John Morant went second as expected to the Grizzlies, and Zion's Duke teammate RJ Barrett third to the Knicks. And like Zion, both guys wearing their hearts on their sleeves.
And Ja, you always said that your dad gave up his basketball dreams to help you accomplish yours. So tell your dad what this means.
It means a lot for both of us. We both know what I've been through. I don't want to get a little emotional up here, man, but I just want to thank him for everything he done for me. He made me who I am today, and I'm just thankful for it all.
Dad, what does it mean to be in this moment? Because he told you when he was 12, this is the stage that he wanted to stand on.
I'm excited for him. You know, your children make goals, and they go out and achieve them. You have to be proud. Very proud. I'm proud of you, son.
That one right there got me. That proud of you, son, got me, Stephen A. Joins us now from New York. Thank you so much for being here. It was a good night for the league. It was a good night, period, for the images that we were able to see. I saw you had a post on Instagram. You referenced it as a special moment. You talked about the culture and the images it represents. Give me a little more. What stood out to you last night?
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, when you took it from a basketball standpoint, you just look at the character of the kids and you hear about the struggles. And obviously, you've got a lot of talent that's coming into this league, so it was good for the NBA. But I just think that the NBA did an exceptional job of telling those stories in concert with ESPN. Obviously, did an exceptional job of telling these stories about these young men, trying to give us an inside picture into some of the struggles that they've had. And for me personally, being an African American and being a father, that's not to knock anybody else, because obviously, you know, every community in this country has its pluses and its minuses. But when it comes to black men, there's obviously this stigma that I believe has been perpetuated for quite some time about absentee fathers in the African American community. And by and large, there's a whole bunch of black men out here that are phenomenal fathers who love their children, who make the sacrifices necessary. And we also know about the mothers as well. And as somebody that lost my parents, both of them, within the last 2 years, to see that picture and to see that vision, recognizing what was done for me personally to help me get to where I am today, it definitely tugged on my emotions a lot, which is why I posted what I posted.
Yeah, which was great. And by the way, like, just the simple humanity of it all, I think everybody could relate to that. But what you said was great. Speaking of emotions, I'd like to go on to your Knicks, shall we? RJ Barrett. There was your boy Spike Lee welcoming him to the franchise. I don't know if Spike is an ambassador like Drake is for Toronto, but how do you think? Okay, good. How do you think New York fans should feel about their new pick?
Well, I think they should be excited as long as things are kept in its proper perspective. RJ Barrett is a talent. He's a talent that has a few things he has to work on. He is not a scrub. He can play. He's got the heart of a lion. He's not scared of the moment. He's not scared of the big stage. In this case, that will be Madison Square Garden. And so in that regard, you have somebody that's not just in New York, but that wants to be in New York, wants to be on center stage, and wants to be a star. And I have no doubt that he's going to put in the work in order to get there. But there is some work to do. He's far from a finished product. That's not to insult him. I think he needs to work on his right hand, even though he says he's right-handed. Didn't see him use it much in college. He's a streaky shooter, but not a marksman. I think he needs to continue to work on his shot as well. Him in concert with Kevin Knox, Dennis Smith Jr., what have you, should do some things. But more importantly, what's so important for them to show is the ability to play and the ability to learn and be excited about playing the game of basketball so they can assist in attracting marquee talent to Madison Square Garden. That's how we got to look at these guys. We can't look at the franchise being placed on their shoulders looking for them to carry the mantle. What they need to do is be attractive enough for somebody above their level, a la the Kevin Durant's of the world and others, willing to come to New York and have them as teammates to go along and really have somebody else carry that mantle. They need to be the attractive commodities that makes a superstar want to come to Madison Square Garden. That's why I don't have a problem with RJ Barrett being here, because I think he's that kind of guy.
Yeah, his dad gave the fans last night what he thought would be the remedy, saying, my son's going to work hard, stay in the gym, do all the things, and get bigger in the summer. So that was great. Stephen A., I love when we talk about the Knicks with you. For some reason, there's a level of emotion that I can just relate to as a basketball fan. Stephen A. Smith joining us on Coast to Coast. Thank you, my friend. David, to you.
All right, Carrie, here's the rest of the top 10. At number 4, the Hawks trading up to get Virginia's DeAndre Hunter there. Nice player, Darius Garland, going 5. And the Timberwolves trading up to get Jarrett Culver at 6. And the Pelicans adding to Zion with Jackson Hayes, the center from Texas. Let's put some numbers on this draft. Canada continues to dominate June. The national team, Toronto, won its first NBA title. And last night, 4 Canadian-born players selected in the first round. That's the most picks by any country other than the U.S. ever in a first round. Because those 4 played college ball in the United States, they're not considered international players, and no internationals went in the lottery for the first time since 2013. However, like in 2013, the first pick following the lottery was an international player, Sekou Doumbouya. And for the first time in the common draft era, Duke, Carolina, and Kentucky each had 3 first-rounders. The 9 total picks, second most from those 3 schools in the first round in the common draft era. Here's Bobby Marks' takeaway from last night.
The biggest takeaway from the draft on Thursday night is what New Orleans was able to do. They took a team that was in turmoil 2 weeks ago with the Anthony Davis trade rumors and turned it into Zion Williamson, Jackson Hayes, and Nickeil Alexander Walker. Remember, they also moved that Solomon Hill contract. And this New Orleans team, a team that we all thought was going to be in rebuild, is now retooling. And if one big free agent this summer potentially have $30 million in cap space, we could be talking about this New Orleans team when it comes to the playoffs next year.
All right, thank you, Bobby. Did you know with Zion, RJ, and Cam Reddish all going in the top 10, Duke became the second school in the common draft era to have 3 guys taken in the top 10 of a single draft. They joined the 2007 national champion Florida Gators, who had Al Horford, Corey Brewer, and Joakim Noah. So now that the draft is over, the free agent drama can resume, and it starts with the king of the North. Kawhi Leonard, where's he going to go? We'll have Woj in to talk about that coming up.
All right.
A look at the big board, which is changing. See Atlanta at 8 and 10 and technically 17, even though it's Brooklyn's pick at the moment. All those are shuffling around right now. This just in, Adrian Wojnarowski from ESPN reports a trade, which we'll tell you about, involving the Atlanta Hawks, who got the short end of the stick on lottery night, falling to the 8th pick. General manager Travis Schlenk had 3 first-rounders to work with. That number has shrunk because Atlanta has picked up New Orleans' number 4 pick in the draft for number 8 and number 17, and the 35th overall pick, 5th pick of the second round. Pelicans will send Solomon Hill. It's a contract they've been trying to shed, $12.7 million upcoming, and the number 57 pick and a future second-round pick back to Atlanta. So, West Hawks, again, lost in the lottery. They dipped down to 8. They had 8, 10, and 17. 8 and 10 are now gone. It's now 4 and 17 for Atlanta. What do you think they're looking at with that 4th pick?
I mean, they're going up to get, most likely, DeAndre Hunter. Talking to people around the NBA, DeAndre Hunter only worked out for one team, the Atlanta Hawks. With 2 picks in the draft, and maybe 3, right, later on, Atlanta added that pick.
Right.
You know, what's going to happen in this conversation most likely is the Atlanta Hawks told DeAndre Hunter that we're going to take you at 8. Shut it down. Don't work out for anybody else. That's probably what happened when you have 2 picks and then they pick up the 3rd. So DeAndre Hunter has established his floor. He doesn't need to do anything. He gets to go away, do his own thing. At this point in the draft, DeAndre Hunter moves up the board. Atlanta clearly did not believe they were going to be able to get their guy at 8, so they had to make an aggressive move to take on Solomon Hill's contract, move up the board, and secure DeAndre Hunter in this draft. I also like this trade for New Orleans. They moved the $12.7 million of Solomon Hill's contract. Quick math here, they got about $33.5 million in room, New Orleans, this summer. Their goal is to not hit the bottom. Their goal is to rebuild this thing on the fly, be highly competitive. I like the trade for both teams. We'll see how it plays out here in a couple hours, but this looks like it's going to be DeAndre Hunter at 4.
And in terms of pairing DeAndre Hunter with Trae Young, Kevin Huerter had a good rookie season as well for the Hawks.
Well, I think that Hunter's the 4th best player in this draft, in my opinion. And so they did make the aggressive move because he was not going to be there down there at 8, and if that's the only player they worked out. Played against them in the semifinal game in the Final Four. Incredibly versatile. But at 6'7", he's also powerful. Now, he's one of those guys that can play 2 or 3, but really can go down there and play the 4 spot. Worked really hard to prove his outside shooting. You know, when he got hurt as a freshman and wasn't able to play for Virginia, which sort of created that 1 versus 16 upset, being off the floor, he was able to spend some time working on his set shot and his mechanics and some other things. And you know what? He's got fresh legs. He didn't have to play that season right there. For me, he was one of the most impactful players in the NCAA tournament this year, and obviously he's got a championship ring.
21 years old, he shot nearly 44% from three-point range this past season for the national champs, a 3-and-D guy. Kristen Ledlow joins in now from New Orleans, where, of course, the Pelicans are at the heart of just about everything happening here tonight. How determined, Kristen, were the Pelicans and David Griffin to move down from that 4th spot?
You know, we hadn't even had the opportunity to talk about his intent to move down from that 4th spot, because when I spoke to Coach Alvin Gentry just minutes ago, his entire focus was on drafting Zion Williamson. Of course, he did not get to say his name. He was not going to risk saying his name prior to actually making the pick, but that has been this franchise's focus up until this point. So to see the team not only getting younger and more talented, but to have the opportunity to perhaps bring in some veteran presence as well. I know that the point of signing Coach Gentry to this extension was not just to develop this young core, but to win now as well. Matt?
All right, Kristen, thanks much. And we'll hear more from Kristen after the draft when folks there in New Orleans can speak about Zion Williamson now that he's officially a part of the team, or once that finally happens. Let's head over to the desk, guys. Initial thoughts on Atlanta's aggressive move here and the Pelicans deciding to have more picks at the end of the top 10 in the middle of the lottery.
Well, to our point about this draft, I'd rather have one DeAndre Hunter than 10 of those other guys, those other picks. No disrespect to Solomon Hill. So we talked about Hunter versus Culver. Obviously, the Hawks like DeAndre Hunter. To me, you're just getting a solid, good NBA player. I'd rather have one of those guys than multiple players who are questionable.
I agree. I like this trade for both teams. I mean, you look at this young man. What is Atlanta doing? They're getting shooters. Where's the GM from Atlanta from? Golden State. So they want shooters. They want guys who can stand at their three-point line and knock down shots, which is going to open up the floor for everything, and those guys penetrating and kicking. And then when you look at from New Orleans, they need assets. They need bodies. They need good players to fill their roster, because as great as Golden State was when you saw in the finals, when Durant, Klay Thompson went down, their bench was thin. You got to have 8, 9 deep players to get through an NBA season. And that was Toronto Raptors' strength. Everybody kept talking about, well, they didn't have the 3 or 4 superstars that you need. They had Kawhi Leonard and a bunch of good players, and they went all the way down to their 9th player. That's how deep they were. So I think you're going to start seeing the landscape of the NBA change, because guess what? The light bulb came on. Everybody can't get 3 superstars. It's not enough of them. So you look at what Masai Ujiri did in Toronto. He got him one stud in Kawhi Leonard, and then he built that roster with very good players from top to bottom. And that's why they were able to win the championship, because they were the best team from 1 to 9 than anyone else in the NBA.
And a lot of those guys possess the 2 assets you hear so often now in the NBA, 3 and D, right? And that's exactly what DeAndre Hunter brings to the table. Let's project a little bit here and talk about what the Hawks may be doing, the Pelicans now with those 8th and 10th picks. Cam Reddish is a name that could be around at that point, and he is a polarizing player in terms of evaluations. Well, why is that?
Yeah, he just doesn't play hard every single possession and doesn't consistently deliver every night. Now, On the flip side of that argument is the fact that he's playing with some great players, and there maybe not be enough to share there with that Duke team. It'll be really interesting because Griff was, he watched a ton of basketball. He's a basketball junkie, but not being on the road working the entire year, when you get multiple picks, these aren't players that you haven't seen maybe as frequently, you don't know as well. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these picks were on the move again.
Untapped potential. He could be a steal because of his size, his length. He was a prototypical big-time three-point shooter, coming out of high school. They question his toughness. They question whether or not he plays hard. They question his physicality. He's not a great finisher, but he did play with two, great players, and so he learned how to defer and be that next guy. So I think while there's great upside, tough. You got to be tough to play at this next level, and they're definitely going to challenge him physically, and whether or not he's going to be able to, respond, it will be the question. But great upside.
You guys both touched on the arguments for and against him. There's the idea that, well, he played with these other two great players, so the numbers are going to suffer. And then there's the counter argument that, well, he should have been able to find his way, right, and make his impact on this team. He did become known as a clutch shooter at Duke. It'll be interesting to see where he lands tonight, via whether it's the Pelicans or somebody else. There they are. They're all suited up and ready to go for draft night at 7 Eastern time. We will hear from the commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, on the other side as we continue our draft preview from Atlanta. That's it.